Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. I hope you're all doing well. So, I was recently asked a question on one of the live streams about um, the afterlife and reincarnation. And of course, as you know, sometimes if I'm on a roll, I say, I don't want to talk about that. Go watch other videos. Because sometimes the questions, if somebody asks me an unrelated question, especially if it's a general question like that, they're questions that take a lot of time to answer, and I don't, um, if I'm involved in something, I don't want to take up another 2 or 3 hours just answering one question. So today, I am going to talk about that, about my belief in the afterlife and my opinions about that. As you know, I use my words very carefully. I'm saying my belief in the afterlife, my opinions about that, because really, that's one of those things that can't be proven. I mean, just by definition, I mean, it's silly. I have to say, it's silly to try and prove or disprove anything beyond our three-dimensional existence. Physics, the closest physics can do is it can point to evidence that there are other realms and other dimensions. They can point to things like we don't know what happens at the subatomic level. We don't know what happened before the Big Bang. Scientists will say we don't know how life emerged on Earth. We just know that it did. They don't know. So when it comes to things like the afterlife, there's no way that anybody can prove or disprove it. So the only things that we have left are people's feelings, their beliefs, religious beliefs, and we have people's experiences, which then you also can't prove or disprove. You have to decide for yourself whether or not you believe what somebody says or not. So, with that in mind, as much as I want to, I would love to be able to stand on a soapbox somewhere and, proclaim the truth and have billions of followers around the world, but I can't do that. But I will tell you what I believe, and I'm going to start with telling you my personal experience. So my personal experience is that I've had numerous out-of-body kinds of experiences. And again, there's no way to prove or disprove any of it. Somebody, a skeptic, could say, well, that all happened inside your head. I have no way to prove or disprove whether that's the case. I can tell you what it felt like to me and what I experienced and strange coincidences that happened afterwards. But you're right, I can't prove to you that it didn't happen in my head. No way to prove that. But nevertheless, that's where we're going to start. So when I was 7 years old, was I 7? I had a bunch of experiences when I was 7. The first one I'm going to share with you is not a near-death experience so much, but when I was 7, I had scarlet fever, which you never hear about today. Do you know anybody that's ever had scarlet fever? I think I was probably the last person to get it. I think scarlet fever was something that people got, in the 1800s or something. I don't know. But anyway, I got this virus called scarlet fever, and I was sick for a couple of weeks, at least. It could have been longer than that. In fact, the skin off my feet and I believe my hands peeled off. That was one of the things that happens when you have scarlet fever. And so at one point, my fever got very high. And I, I, I left my body. I rose out. I was like lying on top, like floating above my body. And I remember looking at my bedroom door, which I always left open as a little kid because I was afraid of the dark. And I saw in the doorway there that there was a being standing there in my doorway. And it was a being that had a long silvery gown on. And I got the feeling that it was a woman, although there was no way I could have known that. And the face was so brilliant and so bright that I couldn't see um, any facial features. It was just this bright light. But I had this experience of there was a lot of love coming from it, and my little 7-year-old brain said, and I could tell she was smiling. That was my experience. So as I'm looking up at this being, wondering, what am I looking at? I wasn't afraid. I didn't have any fear. I was just curious as to who was that. It felt very loving and safe. Now, my mom had this skill. She had this gift. When I was sick, she would know, even though her bedroom was downstairs. She would know when my fever was breaking. I don't know, one of her psychic gifts, but when I was having a high fever and my fever was breaking, she would know. So as I'm looking at the doorway at this strange being, I hear my mother come rushing up the stairs and then walking down the hall with purpose. And I see her come in and she walks right through this being of light. And I'm thinking to myself, that's interesting. She just walked through that person. And then she bends down to who knows what. And when she touches me, I'm back in my body and I'm in just tremendous pain. And my fever was going through the roof. And next thing I know, I'm being put in a cold bath, and she's trying to get my fever to come down. And I don't remember anything else after that. I was told the next day, according to my mom, she said that I told her that this angel sat down on my bed and answered a bunch of questions and told me a bunch of things, and I don't remember that. What I do remember is I remember looking back on it in hindsight, what I believe was happening was that I was getting a download. So that bright light that was shining on me was downloading information to me that wouldn't become available to my conscious mind until later in life. And one of the messages that started crystallizing in my mind years later, it wasn't until I was in my 20s, that I started having this message sort of crystallize in my brain. And again, there's no way for me to prove this. I'm just sharing my experience. I can't prove or disprove. I have no idea if my brain made it up or not. I can tell you that it was a very real experience. And the feeling that I get as I think about it, and this download, is also a very real experience. But what started crystallizing in my mind was that the download was telling me, listen, the first half of your life is going to be really, really tough. But the second half of your life, things are going to be much better. And if you can just hang on, just tough it out for the first half, when you get to the second half, you can coast the rest of the way. It'll be a lot easier. Things will go a lot better for you. So I was still in the first half of my life when that realization started crystallizing in my mind. It has proven to be true. As it so happens, I didn't know this back then, but as it so happens, that's also what my Vedic astrology says those same things. So that's my first experience. It has nothing to do with the afterlife other than it seems to, the feeling that I got as a kid was that this was an angel, which brought with it all of the associations of an angel. I don't believe in Christian angels anymore. I do believe in ancestors, and I do believe in ascended masters and the elves, the bodhisattvas. I do believe that our ethnic ancestors, as well as our family, our spiritual family, I do believe that these beings work with us while we are here in the physical plane. So that belief that I was interacting with an angel, of course, brought with it this very strong feeling of an afterlife and a before life. All of that was part of that whole experience for me, even if none of that was really, I didn't have, I didn't die and come back. All right, so now I'm going to share with you a second experience that I had, and I can't say whether or not I died or left my body. I honestly don't know what happened. But there was, I was experiencing some, out of nowhere, I was 7 years old. And I was out of nowhere, I was getting these really strong, sad feelings. Like, for some reason, I got this feeling that Jesus didn't love me anymore. I was a Christian. So that would have been very important to me. Jesus doesn't love me. And that was very saddening. I also had this awareness of, what if the devil is God and God is the devil? And what if this God that's going around pretending to be God, what if it has the real God has the real God imprisoned somewhere? I don't know where that came from, but that was a frightening feeling, the thought that there was some false God out there and the real, true, loving God was being held captive somewhere. That wasn't a whole lot of fun. So I remember having that experience that day of somehow just having this feeling that Jesus didn't love me. And I went to bed that night, as I did, and went to sleep. And at some point during the night while I was sleeping, I felt myself getting pulled out of my body. And as I got pulled out of my body, I was getting pulled up through the atmosphere. And as I was getting pulled up through the atmosphere, I went through this level of hearing all of the thoughts of all the humans on the planet. Like, it was like like when you turn on a radio or something. It was just like I went through this part of the atmosphere that was filled with all of these thoughts and feelings, and the human beings were just so afraid and insecure and scared, and that was really the big one. It was the fear and the insecurity of, and you could, if I could write a script of all of the things that these feelings and voices that I was going through were saying. But that was the main thing, is that there was just this intensity of fear and insecurity, and what do I do now, and who am I, and I went through all of that. And then I was outside of the Earth's atmosphere, and it was very peaceful. It was just empty. And then, as you have heard in many other near-death experiences, there was a light. And the light started coming closer and closer, or I was getting closer and closer to it. I don't really know. But this light started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was getting pulled into this light. And then the next thing I knew, I was completely engulfed in this light that, in my 7-year-old mind, I said, if I had my human eyes, it would burn the eyes out of my sockets. The light was so bright. I wouldn't have been able to look at it with my physical eyes. And what was surrounding me was the most intense, orgasmic, blissful joy and love. It was unbearable. It was bigger than I could hold. I couldn't hold it. I still think I was projecting that I had, a limited human body, and my body couldn't hold it. And it became so painful. It was like, imagine an orgasm that's building up and it's so intense that you're afraid to let it, do its thing. It might kill you. And I finally just had to relax into it, and this explosion of joy and bliss and love. I mean, it had a physical feeling to it as well as an emotional feeling. That's all it was, and I just became completely, totally absorbed in it. And it felt like my smile, I ended up like a Joker smile. It just went bigger and bigger and bigger, and my smile became huge. It elongated beyond past my face was the way I remember it. And then I kept on saying, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home. And I was so happy to be there. I didn't care about anything. I was just in that blissful explosion of orgasmic love and bliss, and I didn't need or want anything, and I was home. That was where I came from. That's where I belong. And then it started to let go. And I was saying, no, 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 I don't want this to end. No, no, I don't want to go back. No, no. And it very gently receded, and I started getting pulled back towards the earth again. And I got pulled back into the atmosphere, and I went through that same craziness of everybody's pain and insecurity and all of that, the fear and all that. And then I passed through that, and next thing you know, I woke up in my body, and it was morning. And, back then I was a Christian, so I said that I had seen Jesus, but it took me decades to go, wait a second, I didn't see anybody. Nobody spoke to me. Nobody said, I am so-and-so. I came to that conclusion because that was my religion. But I didn't see Jesus. But that reminds me of exactly what you hear when you hear people who talk about having died on the operating table, and they go through that tunnel of light, and many people have that exact same experience. And for many years I wondered, why did I have that experience? What was that all about? Maybe I still don't know the answer to that question, but it definitely makes life easier when you know that's where you're going to end up. So that's probably where I'm going to end up. The question is, where are you going to end up? I don't know that I can answer that question for you. People ask, where do we go in the afterlife? Well, I think I have a possibility of where I might be going. But I don't know where you're going to go. And is it possible that we go to different places? How many different places are there to go? What is it that creates that? Do we have any power over what we experience? And why is that important? That's going to be the thing that I ask at the end of the lecture, is why it's important to your life here and now to know the answer to these questions, or to, whatever we decide on that. So I want to take a look at my notes here so I stay on topic. So I put down here the question because I started thinking, what is it that people want to know about this? Why do people ask me or ask anyone? Because it's a very common question. Where do we go when we die? What happens in the afterlife? What is the afterlife? And I think the main reason that people ask this question is because, let's not kid ourselves, human incarnated life can be very painful. It can be very frightening. It can be very sad. It can be very painful. Many of you have lived through horrific trauma. Many of you have lived through maybe not horrific abuse, but you've lived through being abandoned, neglected, unseen, unloved, which arguably could be worse than outright abuse. And, many of you have lived through death. That's been one of the most challenging experiences for me was living through the death of people that I really loved and having them taken from me and feeling them no longer be in this three-dimensional space we live in. You feel them go, and to feel that they're no longer there. That's a horrible feeling. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I have. So part of the question, I think part of the reason why people ask, where do we go, is they want to know, is there going to be an end to the pain? Which then, begs the question, why are there so many beliefs about the afterlife being so painful? Why are there beliefs in false beings of light in the afterlife who seek to imprison you and vampirically take your soul energy from you? Why are these beliefs popular? You would think people wouldn't want to believe something bad like that. But a lot of people do. In fact, when I tell people that I believe that you've chosen to come here, that because you've chosen to come here and you've chosen to your particular birth family and your origin story, because you've chosen that, no matter how horrible it is, it means that you have the power to change the present and change the future. If you have that much power that you can choose to be here, it means you can choose what kind of life you want to live. That's a positive thing. People don't want to hear that. A lot of people don't want to hear that. They get very angry with me if I tell them that you have the power to choose your life. They don't like that. They want to be told they're a victim. They want to be told that not only are they a victim in this life, but they're going to be a victim in the next life. I would think people would want to hear something hopeful. I could get into some of the reasons why I think people like to hear the negative, but we can save that for another time. But I think the main reason is that people want to be free of the pain. Because if you knew that the afterlife existed, and if you knew that it was someplace pleasant, then you wouldn't worry about it. You'd go, oh, I'll deal with that later. Right now, and you would deal with the here and now. So I think a lot of people want to escape from their pain, and they want out of this life. They want out. They don't want to be here. And so they focus on the afterlife. Some people, like the guy who asked the question a few nights ago, somebody that he was close to had passed away. So he understandably had a lot of questions about, where is my friend? And that's a whole other thing. Wanting to know where somebody you loved is and how are they. I've gone through that. Even as a spiritual teacher, I lost the love of my life. And I, for the longest time, wanted to know, is she okay? Where is she? What's it like for her? and not getting any response, not getting any answers. That was very difficult and challenging, and it started, a lot of doubts started to creep in. What happens when it's all over? Which I didn't. I didn't have any of those doubts because of those experiences I had as a kid, and some of the experiences I had when I learned this. So, before I forget, if you want to experience some of that bliss and that power in this life now, I would go to thunderwizard.com and sign up for the 90-day warrior lightning qigong before I forget. So I think that's why most people want to know about the afterlife and they ask about it. So let's talk about the light. I told you my experience with the light. I am not the only person that talks about the light. A lot of people talk about the light. And that's like the main thing, is that when you die, there's this tunnel of light that appears in front of you. So I've shared this with you. But you gotta pick. If you're somebody that believes in this, false beings of light, soul trap stuff, you can't choose to believe that and also choose to believe in Hindu mantra or the gods. You can't choose to believe in this false soul trap and also believe in Tibetan Buddhism, for example. So I want you to analyze your feelings. I mean, what belief systems, nowadays people have a hodgepodge of belief systems, which I got nothing against. But a lot of those same people who practice yoga or meditation or believe in the gods or believe in Tibetan Buddhism will at the same time believe that this is a soul trap. And there's false beings of light that want to take that you live in a matrix. But you got to pick one. Because those two belief systems don't combine. Tibetan Buddhists will tell you that the moment that you die, the first thing you will experience is this light. And if you fearlessly go to the light, you will become enlightened, you will move on to the next plane of existence, and you will never need to incarnate ever again. But if you have fear and you indulge in the fear, then that will, like gravity, pull you down into some other plane of existence and you will be reincarnated again. So the whole teaching of, be afraid of the light, don't go into the light, what does that do? That creates fear. So you have to pick one. Do you want to believe in this Gnostic New Age belief that there's a false light and false beings of light? Or are you somebody that likes to believe in the traditional spiritual beliefs that go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years? You kind of have to pick one, because you can't have them both, because they don't coincide. They don't mesh. And I say that because I tend to have a lot of respect for the Tibetans. So here's my other question, my next question for you, which is there a difference between this three-dimensional life and the afterlife? Is it that you believe that you want to be out of this life so that you can be in the truth and then you'll be free? What if the afterlife is as much your creation as this one? What does that mean? I mean, does that Does that make you sad? Does that make you frightened? Maybe that's where that belief in the false light is coming from. Maybe those are old memories of after people have passed away, they've created some other kind of a uncomfortable scenario. And so they feel they were lied to, they were cheated by the light. But that's something to think about. And I shared this the other night because I really enjoyed listening to it. Because I like to listen to people's near-death experiences. And I like to look for the things in those near-death experiences, assuming that they're telling the truth, that are the same. And one of the things that's the same is this light. That's usually something that happens. Doesn't happen every time. There's a life review where you are shown your life from beginning to end, and you have like this instantaneous video that you somehow are able to experience every moment of your life in the snap of a finger. And you are asked, what did you do in this life? And people come to realize what was important, which was a lot of it was how they treated others. And were they selfish? And people who seemingly on paper had this great life, but in review they realized there wasn't really much substance to it. I didn't really do anything to help others or to give unconditionally to people. And other people, there was a movie, I can't remember, it was a while ago, but there was a movie about the afterlife, and I loved it because the whole point of it was you got points for taking fearless action. And that was the point of the movie, that in the afterlife, once you're dead, that's what they count up the score. And they, you took fearless action. You asked this girl out. Whatever it was that you did, you climbed that mountain, you did something, and you overcame your fear. So you get, which is different than the other one, which is, were you a good person? Did you live a moral life? But I want you to think about the possibility that this life and the next life may be completely dependent upon what you choose to create. And as I said, I didn't get to it, but I had heard a near-death experience of a guy who said, I didn't see a light, but I knew if I wanted to, one would appear. He said that he could see that there were levels above him and levels below him. And that at the level that he was at, he became aware that he was creating his own experience in the afterlife. And for him, he became very aware that that is what we are. Souls. We are gods. We have this ability to create these experiences. And then he went on to say, and that's what we do here. We're creating our own experience, but according to him, if we were to become fully aware of that, it would be such a shock that we wouldn't be able to function. So in order to function here, we have to, sort of at least buy into the idea that, all this is real and that it's happening to us, that we're not creating it. But of course, I like the idea. So what if you create your afterlife? This would explain why, for instance, Jesus, it is historically impossible for there to have been a man named Jesus of Nazareth. It's historically impossible. Couldn't have happened. I have a video about it. And yet, many people, when they die, guess who's waiting for them? Jesus is waiting for them. And, Jesus ends up saying the same thing that everybody else says. I remember once when I was a born-again Christian, I must have been very young, must have been 19 or 20 or something like that, and I was watching TBN. I don't know if that's even still on. Trinity Broadcasting Network. The crazy born-again couple. I think it's still probably on somewhere. And they had this woman who was, I guess, was a Christian, and she had died. and come back. And they wanted to hear her talk about heaven and Jesus. And she looked kind of uncomfortable and like she felt a little bit awkward. And she said something to the effect of, there's going to be a lot of people in heaven that you don't think are going to be there. And things aren't going to happen the way that you think. And she didn't say anything more than that for obvious reasons, because the born-again Christians couldn't tolerate it. But I remembered that. So it's interesting that the people who see Jesus when they die, at least the ones that I see, Jesus is pretty much saying the same thing. He's not saying, you have to believe this or go to hell. He's saying the same thing. What did you do in life? How did you what did you give to others unselfishly? Were you living a life that had purpose and value? Same thing. But it doesn't matter. And then some people will say they saw Jesus and they saw Shiva. And Jesus says one thing and Shiva says another. And of course, if you're a Christian, those two can't be there. How can that happen? Unless this guy knows something that they don't, which is that if that's what you need, that's what you're going to create. You need Jesus, that's who's going to show up when you die. You're going to manufacture a Jesus who's going to tell you what you already know to be true. That what's important in this life is not how much money you make or how popular you are or how powerful you are. It's about, did you live a life of depth? Did you share with others fearlessly from your soul? They all end up saying the same thing in one way or another. So that's my question for you. What if there's no difference? When I hear, we haven't heard a lot of people talk about the Matrix lately, but Matrix, maybe the whole idea of the Matrix is maybe it's not as popular as it was. But people, believe that if they can just find the physical matrix and walk through it, that then all of their problems will leave, because this matrix is, it's a false reality that's thrust upon them. And as long as they can go to the real truth, they'll be free of all that. And I've always said from the beginning, but if you have a victim mentality now, and you feel that people are doing it to you, and you feel that you don't have the ability to create your own reality, guess what's going to happen if you exit this matrix? Even if you go to the truth and there's freedom, you're going to still carry that with you, and you're going to create another matrix with all that same garbage in it, whether it's this reality or another one. That's my belief anyway. So that's my next question for you. What if there isn't a difference between this life and the afterlife? And here's another couple of questions I want to ask you. So, what if life after death, or the afterlife, is real? Just think about that for a moment. What if the afterlife is real? Then what? Do you just give up? Do you jump off a cliff? Do you sit at home and wait to die? Do you just do whatever the heck you want until you're done and you can punch out and go to the afterlife, like so many Christians seem to want to do? Well, for me, if I sit with that question, if the afterlife is real, then it seems to make sense that I need to take this life very seriously, because I'm only here for a limited time. And the truth is, we're all going to die. So at some point, we are going to leave this three-dimensional life. And if the afterlife is real, do you want to look back and have any regrets? Do you want to be embarrassed? Do you want to have is there anything that you want left unsaid or undone? So if the afterlife is real, then it seems to me that the most important thing to do is to figure out as quickly as you can what is most important here and to live that. To live that, because you're only here for a short amount of time. So live the crap out of this life. Make this life the best. Make that your goal, that this life is going to be the best yet. And I'm not going to give up until I am completely fulfilled and satisfied. And according to some of these near-death experiences, we can't do that unless we live with unconditional love for other people, and that we make an impact on other people's lives, that we make other people's lives better. That when people think about us, they say, that person in the world made me a better person in some way, shape, or form. So I had something else I want to say, but it flew out of my head. All right, so here's the next question. So that was, what if the afterlife is real? The conclusion is, I mean, you should work. It seems to me the logical thing to do is to work really hard to make this life as valuable as you possibly can. To take advantage of every moment and live it to the fullest, to the best of your ability. So the next question is, what if the afterlife isn't real? What if that experience I had was just in my head? Like some people will say, when you're dying and all of the blood and oxygen is leaving your brain, that, you know, the center of your brain, there's this release of DMT, and the bright light is just all of the electrons, the electrical nervous system in the brain, just, you know, one last giant explosion of consciousness. And in that, you know, fraction of a second, you experience all of this stuff, and then you just die. Then there's nothing. So that's my next question for you. What if there is no afterlife? What if this is it? Well, it seems to me that the conclusion is still the same. That you better live the crap out of this life. I mean, what an absolute waste of a life would it be if you feel like a victim and you're miserable and you do nothing but complain and you don't do anything, or you're afraid and you don't do anything to overcome your fears, that you sit around and you drink and you smoke and you complain and then you make yourself sick and you die a horrible death. What a waste of a life. You don't even get an afterlife to do it again. You don't get to go, oh my God, I got to do that again. Let me try again. Let me go back. You don't even get that. This is it. This is the best you're going to get. To me, the conclusion is the same, no matter how you look at it. Whether there is an afterlife or whether there isn't an afterlife, the only conclusion is you had better get up off your rear end and make the best out of this life. Get as much as you can. In fact, if there is no afterlife, you better be so damn selfish, because it won't matter. You're not going to be judged. Nobody's going to judge you for being right or being wrong. Nobody's going to care. You're not going to care whether or not you were accepted and loved by the government or your religion or your family or your friends. It won't matter. If you're giving up your life so that other people, like your family, your friends, your spouse, your religion, your government, says you're a good person, if you give your life doing some stupid job you can't stand because you think that's what a good person does, and there's no afterlife and you end up dying, your life was wasted. It was just an empty waste. You didn't even enjoy it. So no matter how I look at it, it seems to me, whether the afterlife is real or not, there's only one thing left to do, which is live the fuck out of this life. To get as much love as you can get. Have as much pleasure as you can get. Be as healthy and happy, as prosperous. Experience this three-dimensional world. This is a world in and of itself. Experience it. Get the most out of it. You don't like where you are, go somewhere else. You don't like where you're living, you don't like your job, you don't like your relationship, go get another one. I told you about the movie I watched, was it last night? Of the 25-year-old kid who ended up becoming the most accomplished solo mountain climber in history. And I mean, if you watch it, it's called The Alpinist. Watch it. I can't. It's hard for me to comprehend that a human being can do what this kid did. And he died at 25 after, again, climbing this absolutely unclimbable. I mean, how he did it, I have no idea. In the middle of winter, I have no idea how anybody could do what this guy did without any ropes. I mean, how they do that, I have no idea. And he took videos of himself and selfies of himself, and his phone worked up at the top of this mountain, and he sent it to everybody that he loved, and look at me, look where I am, woohoo. And he was so happy that he accomplished it. And then he died. Then they started rappelling down the mountain, and we don't know, but they found that they saw the rope, that as they were going down, they created an avalanche. He was there with his friend. They both died in the avalanche. Probably died instantly. But what a life. That guy will never say that he didn't do absolutely everything he wanted to do. He has no regrets. That guy is my hero. That 25-year-old kid, that is my hero. He did it perfectly. And I want to have that same experience, that I want to woohoo, and then my life is over. That's what I want. I want to look back and say, man, I lived the crap out of that life. All right, what other thoughts do I have about this? So here's something that I've said before many times, and I'll repeat it because I think it's worth repeating. That the gods themselves look down upon human life, and they wish they could incarnate. They wish they could become human, because they see what a tremendous opportunity it is to live in three-dimensional reality. That the power that you can gain, the wisdom that you can gain, the experience that you can gain, how your soul grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And that was one of the other things that guy said, who said he had a near-death experience and realized that he was creating all of it. Whether it was, if it was at a higher level, he was creating, a more, whatever. But at the lower levels, you're creating Jesus talking to you, or, somebody's talking to you, or some God is, he says that's just what they need to do to create. And as you evolve, you don't need that anymore. You don't need to have the tunnel of light. You don't need to have the life review. You don't need any of that stuff anymore. You just realize that you're creating all of this, and you see that humans do it, and he says that if you realized how big you were, that you're not this little human, that your soul is enormously huge. It's, there's whole entire universes. You're bigger than the universes. That's your true essence. And it's completely up to you to experience that. I forgot why I started talking about that. But it's that this life, this physical life, is an opportunity. That it's a priceless opportunity. And it would be a shame to waste that. I don't know if any life is actually wasted. But there are people that I know, that I've known since I was a kid. And I'm going to be honest with you. I look at their lives and I think, what a waste. I know them. I've known them their whole lives, and I've watched them make repeated choices, and I've watched them indulge repeatedly in certain mindsets like a victim mentality that they keep repeating and keep indulging and keep doubling down on those kinds of beliefs, being stubborn, inflexible, holding on to grudges, being afraid and not breaking, not seeking to grow beyond themselves. And, I look some of them, around my age, and I think to myself, of course, I don't tell them that, but I think to myself, what a waste. What a waste of an opportunity. What a waste of a life. And I see many of them in a lot of physical unhealth. And again, there are some people that get diseases and, it's clearly something karmic. That, there's nothing that could have been done. They don't need to feel guilty about that. But then there's people that it's obvious that they spend decades and years thinking and living and doing things that ends up when they, but look, I'm telling you, when I hit around age 52, I could feel when I would go surfing that I just did not have the stamina that I used to have. And I was like, wow, this is real. This age thing, your body does start to slow down and you do start to lose stuff. So, and I'm somebody, I haven't drank or smoked, my whole adult life. I stopped doing that when I was 18. Actually, I smoked cigarettes for a few years after that, but I stopped, all that. I've stopped doing drugs, stopped drinking, stopped coffee even later on in life, nicotine, of all kinds. I stopped all of it at some point in my 20s. I gave up all of that stuff. And I felt, even as somebody who works really hard to stay healthy and stay active, I felt age catching up with me. And I can only imagine what would have happened, because I can remember being, how old was I? Early 20s. I can remember even before that, in my teens, because I used to smoke like a pack of cigarettes a day. And I can remember every day waking up and hacking, brown gunk out of my lungs every morning in the shower. And I was doing some stand-up comedy when I was 20, I don't know, early 20s. And I had to stop in the middle of the joke at the wrong time and clear my throat, which ruined the joke. That's what made me say I'm going to quit smoking, because it just, that was important to me. Imagine if I had kept doing that, I don't know if I'd still be alive. I don't know how some of the people I know are still alive after all the garbage they put themselves through. This life is an opportunity. It's the biggest opportunity, and make use of it. And the only way I know how to do that is what I teach you guys to do. Which is, yes, you may have pain, you may have sorrow, you may have trauma, you may have tragedy, and you should honor that, feel all of those feelings. But the only way out is to live fearlessly, to love fearlessly, to take action towards what makes you happy. The guy who's my new hero now, he had no money, he had no fame. In fact, they wanted to film him as he's, solo climbing these unbelievable mountains that nobody's ever climbed, and he just disappeared on them. And he later said, it's not the same if you're there. I wanted to have no net whatsoever. I wanted no people. I wanted it to be an experience with me alone with nature. It's not the same if there are other people around. He didn't want any fame. He didn't want any money. He just wanted to have the experience that his soul wanted, and he wanted to do whatever it took to experience that, and he didn't care if it killed him, which it eventually did. And what is it in your life? What is the thing in your life that you want just because you want it, that nobody will ever know about it, that you can never gain any fame from, or any reputation or anything else, be a good person? Nobody will have an opinion about it because it's just something that you want for yourself. What is that thing? And Are you doing it? Are you giving it to yourself? I'm asking myself that question now every day. I've made decisions that have brought me here, and there's been a lot of things going on in the world that brought me here. But the past couple of months, every day I'm asking myself, what is it that I want? Why am I here? Where do I want to go? What is it that I want to do? I don't want to waste any time because, I don't have a whole lot of time left. So, those are my thoughts about the afterlife. I'll tell you now my opinion. Those are all of the questions, which I think are more important than my opinion. And I mean that. I think if you're watching this, this is a good time to hit, pause and just think about the questions. But if you want my opinion, I'll tell you, if you haven't already gleaned it yet. My opinion is that there isn't one place in the afterlife. That there are there are infinite levels of reality beyond this one. And to the extent that you choose to evolve, that will determine which place you end up going. And anyway, a bunch of different thoughts just flew through my head. I do believe in reincarnation, but I believe that reincarnation is a choice. I do not believe that anybody is forced to come back here. I do not believe that the universe punishes anybody for anything. I think that whatever challenges you experience are things you've chosen to experience so that you can eventually have a better understanding of how to create and master this experience of life, whether in the body or out. I think whatever negative experiences you've had, no matter how horrible, you decided that's what will give me a challenge that if I overcome it, I'll have a lot more power to create what I want. And those are some of my thoughts. All right, so I'm open to take any questions. This is a question and answer. It means that if you have a question, you write the word question in all caps so that I see it. That's the whole point, so that I see it. Then I'll answer your question. Or you can share honest feelings. I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm happy, I'm confused. I love hearing your feelings because when you're in a state of having your feeling, you are in a malleable state that allows you to be downloaded information from the universe. That's why I want people to have their feelings and express them. Learn that strength, that skill of being conscious of all of your thoughts and your feelings. All right, Thundra Staves Rangel says, good evening. And you can go to her website, thundra.thunderwizard.com, Thundra. I won't even tell you all the fabulous things that she offers there. You can go check it out for yourself. If you want me to advertise you on my live streams, you can go to lockdown.thunderwizard.com, and if you pass the very simple test, I will give you your own website, and if you say hello, I'll say, hey, go check out this person's website. All right, again, I'm not seeing questions, which is what this is all about, right? There's some spam. Let me go get rid of that. Third Omen, that's not a question. That's not a question. Triple R 123. Dude, I just don't know why. I mean, how many times have I asked you just to stop dropping your opinion and, ask questions? Are you doing it on purpose? Do you just not give a crap? Are you just like, who cares what Mahadeva wants on his channel? I'm just going to come here and just fart and crap all over whatever I feel like doing. Is it that you don't understand? Do you not have the ability to hear and comprehend and take appropriate action? I don't know. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says, hello, you can check him out. He's also got a great website, and he's got a bunch of other stuff besides what he's learned from me. So you can go to his website, Vincent.thunderwizard.com. You can get At the very least, get a good astrology reading from him. He's a popular astrologer. None of these are questions. Runaway train, that's not a question either. You said something YouTube didn't like, so it hid you for some reason. Agent of the universe, honest feeling. I can't judge your honest feeling because you can't help your feelings. None of us can. This sounds like an intense one. He says, I feel hatred towards this life and I want to die to become God, Emperor, and create my own ideal paradise. That's an honest feeling. I have a lot of thoughts about it. But you know what? I'm not going to lecture you on sharing your feeling because you didn't ask me a question. So I'll let you just have that feeling. Let's see what else. Atham Animus question. Do you believe that it's possible for someone's soul desire to discover the secret to physical immortality? No. Because nobody achieving physical immortality just means that you don't die as fast as somebody else. That has nothing to do with the quality of your life. You know, I think about this kid, this 25-year-old kid that achieved things no human, number one, could possibly achieve, but no human has ever achieved. He's blown the doors off of what people can accomplish in terms of, climbing mountains without gear. It's just, there's everybody. I mean, there was another guy a few years ago who was like the guy, and look at how can that guy do that? And he was saying that about this guy. He's like, how that's crazy what this kid was doing. How could anybody do that? And he didn't live for very long, but he had a hell of a lot of happiness. He had to have just had unbelievable happiness and joy. Physical immortality is something somebody wants when they're afraid. So you asked my opinion, so I'm going to tell you. Are you asking about yourself? Again, if you let me know why you're asking a question, it makes me able to help you more. My assumption based on that, because the only reason you would ask it, seemingly to me, is that you want to have physical immortality. So that means you're afraid of death, which means you're afraid of the afterlife, which means you're afraid of your essence. It sounds like somebody wants control. And don't get me wrong, I wanted physical immortality, way back when I was, seeking to master the Mao Shan stuff. And I came to find out one of the reasons that changed my mind about that, because I was working towards it. And along the way, I was achieving all kinds of power. I had all kinds of superpowers. And I gave up on it because my teacher's teacher, who had, I won't tell you exactly what he did, but he achieved something and died and resurrected himself, and he had crazy superpowers. And he was not a happy person. He was one of the most unevolved, unhappy people I've ever seen. And he was very controlling, and he was a bully. And that's what made me go, oh, so that's not it. All of the bells and whistles of all this, as fun as it is, it's just a tool for me to enjoy my life more and to become more evolved. But those things don't mean anything. So physical immortality means nothing, which means that, no, of course that's not your soul desire. Your soul desire is something you can only achieve in three-dimensional physical reality, in a limited life that only humans can do. Now, the interesting thing is that when I take people through the questions about, how you find out what your soul desire is. By the way, if you want to figure that out, you can go to career.thunderwizard.com, and there you can scroll to the bottom. And if you want to, so far, I can't guarantee it, but so far, every single person that I've talked to within usually long before the hour is up, they have discovered exactly what they want to achieve and what their soul desire is. Them doing it, that's something else, but they can figure it out. If you want to learn how to do it yourself, and if you want to become a life coach and do that same thing, charge people money to take them through those exact, because those questions work. Ask those same questions in the order that I give them, and you'll probably have the same experience as me. Everybody ends up knowing exactly what their soul desire is. So you go to career.thunderwizard.com and you can get that video training series, or you can just scroll to the bottom and get a session with me, and I'll help you. Atham Animist, the soul desire to be the discovery of true physical. Yeah, again, I just don't see the point of physical immortality. I just don't see the point. The only way that I can see it being of value, which is to look at it from the Taoist perspective. So the Taoists, the traditional Taoist belief is that they do all of this energy work so that they can become what they call a perfected immortal. But bear in mind, it means that they transcend beyond the physical, and they call it becoming a god. And the idea is that you are out of the physical realm and you're not reincarnating, so that you can keep your awareness, so that you can then still continue to do the work of evolving and learning and growing. And you don't have to do it by continuously forgetting who you are and reincarnating. But it ends up being the same, because just because you're an immortal being doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you're happy. There are demons out there. There are very powerful demons. There are all kinds of spiritual beings. It doesn't mean that they're happy and evolved. Your soul desire will always be something that you can only accomplish in three-dimensional physical life that gives you joy and happiness. And what you're talking about is, I'm looking for some kind of tool to have safety and control. I don't hear any happiness in it. When you have joy, you don't care how long you live. You hear people say this: I'm so happy I could die right now. That's somebody who is in true bliss, because that's what it feels like. When you leave this life, when you die and you go to that source, however you want to look at that, it's like there's nothing like this. Nothing like it in physical reality. Your soul desire will have that quality to it. Discovering the secret of physical immortality, that doesn't sound like it has any of those things. It sounds like what God Emperor wants, which is to have control over everything, which doesn't have anything to do with happiness either. What else? Again, I'm looking for the questions. So if you have a question, write the word question. Anything else, you guys, if you're new to my channel and you don't know that, it's just noise to me, and I have to scroll through it, and it takes me longer to get to the people's questions and honest feelings. So people are learning how to do this, I see. Bryce Gertson, question. If consumption of caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and drugs has a negative impact on the aura, is sugar ingestion also bad for the aura? I don't know. I assume it probably is. I'm not a health expert, so you might want to ask somebody who is an expert. So, Mr. West, I appreciate that you've written your question in all caps, but that's not what I meant. So it's okay, you don't know any better, but let me explain it to you. I want you to, if you look above your question, you see Bryce. He wrote the word question in all caps, and then he just wrote his question. That's what I want. I just want to be able to see the word question. You don't need to write the whole thing in all caps screaming at me. But you didn't know any better, and you did get my attention, so I will answer your question. You say, if I die conscious of reincarnation, do you think I can choose to give it another shot? So it makes me want to ask you, Mr. West, did you listen to the Did you come on to this late, or did you listen to what I said? Because I answered that question. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that you came on late and you didn't hear me explain it. So first off, it has nothing, your consciousness of reincarnation is meaningless. I guess I can understand why you think that you think when you're dying, you realize that incarnation again, it's coming from fear because you're wanting to control something that you think you have no control over. But let me tell you what I've already said and stated on many of my videos. When you leave your body, you remember. And nobody is reincarnated against their will. Nobody. Everybody chooses to reincarnate. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter if they die believing in reincarnation or if they're atheists or if they're born again Christians. It doesn't matter what they believe. Once you exit this body, you will remember your essence and who you are, and you'll remember that this is all you're doing. So all of that effort that you're trying to put into remember, just live your life. There's only one thing that matters. I have a book. If you're not familiar with it, it's called the Shamanic. Wait. What is it? The Shamanic. Okay, that's right. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. And if you read that book, and if you don't want to buy the book, you can find it on Amazon. You can put my name in. You can put my website, which is my name, micahwilliamdenny.com. You can go there and you'll find all of my books. If you don't want to pay the $10 for the book because you're cheap and lazy, then you can listen to me read my book aloud on my channel. And I recommend that you all do that. If you can master what's in that book, you won't need anything else. That will guide you towards everything that you want. And the only commandment, and it is a commandment, there aren't 10 commandments, there's only one. If you do not follow this commandment, you will suffer. Not because God is punishing you. You will suffer because the universe is designed to do one thing. It is designed to empower you and give you resources to live your deepest soul desire. That's it. And that's the only commandment that there is, which is you have to find that thing that makes your soul blissfully happy. And that may not be an easy thing to do because it may be completely opposite to what everybody else wants you to do. So it might be actually traumatic coming to that conclusion, but that's the only commandment there is. You don't have to remember reincarnation or not. You don't have to do anything. Just that. That's the only thing that you're here to do. Is live the bliss that your soul wants to experience. For that guy, it was climbing mountains without ropes. I don't know what yours is. Third omen, please write the word question in all caps. Why? So that I don't miss it. I want to answer your question for you. What is the highest scale we can perceive our emotions without being anchored to the effects and dissolving in the lower realms? A lot of assumptions there. So there's a lot of, our society has these assumptions. Our society tells you, don't have feelings. Our society shames people out of their feelings. We are taught that we're supposed to go around, nothing bothers us. Everything is okay. I'm fine. In fact, we have a word. I'm fine. I'm just fine. Right? Which means stop asking me. Leave me alone. I'm not going to share my feelings with you. I don't have them. If I share my feelings with you, then you'll hurt me. So I'm not going to make myself vulnerable by sharing my feelings. So that assumption is in your question. That if you don't even say about feeling your emotions or experiencing them, you say perceiving. Perception is a totally different thing. Perception is from out here. With my eyeballs, I perceive There's something over there. That's not the same as experiencing it. That's empathy. I can feel what that guy's going through. I perceive that guy's upset. So what makes you think that perceiving that you have emotions helps you? Again, it feels like you've been programmed to disconnect from your feelings. In fact, your question assumes that at some point you'll perceive your feelings to such a degree that you'll be pulled into the lower realms. And what is that? The lower realms are bad. The lower vibrations are bad. This is, very new age. Love and light. I just have happiness and that's all. And I don't go to those lower places of anger. Well, you're a human being, and every human being is constantly, every moment, having two feelings. If you have love, you have hate. If you have happiness, you have sadness. If you have hope, you have fear. You have two feelings going on all the time. And when things go your way, it makes you happy. And when things don't go your way, it makes you sad. This life has all kinds of negative feelings, and I only use the word negative because we don't like them. But there's nothing unspiritual about having any feeling, no matter what it is. And no feeling you have in and of itself has the ability to pull you or dissolve you into a lower realm. You're letting us know your fear. You are afraid that your feelings will consume you and destroy you. So to answer your question, there is no highest scale of perception of forget all that intellectual, superficial, pseudo-spiritual bullshit. Because that's all I'm hearing in that. Nothing personal, but that's all I'm hearing in your question. It's that everything is love and light, law of attraction, superficial, run away from your feelings, intellectualize everything, nonsense. You are required to, let me tell you, you haven't heard my definition of enlightenment. Here's my definition of enlightenment. Record it, write it down. Here it is. Enlightenment is having all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of your impulses, all of your desires, all of your drives, positive or negative, pleasant or unpleasant, high vibration or low vibration, having all of them, whatever they are, and feeling them, not perceiving them, but feeling them. Even if you think they're going to destroy you, you have the feelings. And then you have the awareness to know what actions you can take which will be beneficial for both you and the rest of consciousness. If you can do that, you are enlightened. You are as enlightened as it gets, which means that there are going to be people who are fully enlightened, who are full of bliss and happiness. And then there are going to be people who are fully enlightened, who are full of rage and feelings of murder, self-hatred, insecurity. But their actions will be based on conscious awareness. So get rid of that idea that your emotions can do something bad to you. They can't. And the idea, you can't control your emotions. You might have some control over to what degree you indulge in them. But you have no control over what is going to stimulate your emotions. You only have control over the actions that you take. That's the only control you have. And if you are somebody who has to act based on their feelings, you're going to end up in prison, because prison is filled with people who don't have any ability to act contrary to their feelings. And those who simply deny their feelings end up in the nut ward. So if you don't want to end up in prison, then you're going to have all your feelings, because most people in prison are aware of all their feelings, and they have to act on every single one. So you can have the awareness of your feelings that the guy in prison has. But if you deny your feelings, you're going to end up in the loony bin. people in the loony bin, well, we could get into that. Bottom line is, it's not about what you feel, it's about what you do. But you can't be conscious of what actions are positive or negative if you don't allow yourself to feel all of your feelings. So, one of the things I react to strongly, and you've seen me do it, are people who act passive aggressively. So I just made a video earlier today, and there was somebody who was giving me unsolicited advice about what to do and what not to do on my channel. And I didn't talk about it, but he was being passive aggressive. So when you stuff your feelings and you don't feel all of your negative feelings, it is guaranteed that you will act out destructively on other people, and you will be completely unaware of it. You won't even know that you're doing it. It's called unconscious. Now, the guy in prison, he's conscious of what he's doing, but he's a sociopath. He has no empathy. But the person who stuffs his feelings down and doesn't acknowledge his negative feelings, those negative feelings are going to find a way out. They will express themselves, but you want to look good to the world. So even if you think, I just give myself and all I do is I love too much, and people go, God, that person bugs me, I don't like being around them, because you're passive aggressive. You give unsolicited advice. You're not aware of the selfish reasons why you're doing things. Nothing wrong with doing things for selfish reasons as long as you're aware of them. So, third omen, I don't know you. I only know that one question, but that one question is setting you up to be an unconscious, passive-aggressive person. What people like is they like authentic people. Authentic people are people that I feel you. I trust you because I can see that you're conscious of your feelings and you act with empathy regardless of what your feelings are. You can't do that if you're not conscious of all of your feelings. You want to know what it is to have empathy? You must first have all of your feelings. That's step number one. All right. Joe Bristow, question. Do you have any advice on how to improve dream recall? No, I don't have a problem with that. By the way, anybody's interested, the Maushan stuff, if you do those forms, your dreams will start changing. You'll start having more shamanic, lucid dreams. That's been my experience. I don't have a problem recalling my dreams, but I do know that some people are different. Some people have dreams, some people remember them, and some people don't. So I wish I could give you more help with that, other than just to have, without obsessing on it, just have the intention of wanting to know and remember your dreams. There's probably other things, but like I said, it's not a problem for me, so I don't need to know about it. Thundra Staves Rangel, question. What are your thoughts on people who have passed visiting in dreams? It's a great question. The only person that I've dreamt about a lot who passed away was my dad. And what's interesting is that I haven't dreamt about him a lot lately. I mean, I do have dreams about my parents, but it's sort of like dreams like I'm back with them, and then I wake up and I go, oh wait, they're dead. I don't think that those dreams are meaningful. I think it's just my unconscious playing, just getting rid of old memories or who knows what. But the dreams that I've had of my dad that seem significant, what I found interesting was that in each successive dream, he got younger. He got younger and younger and younger. I could make, some assumptions that maybe as time has gone on, because this was early, right after his death, that maybe he was, his soul was morphing back into, a younger state or something like that. I don't know. But the thing is about dreams and people who have passed, I'm going to say the same thing that I do about shamanic journeys, which is that whatever vision or dream that you have, you should assume that it's your own unconscious fantasies, fears. In other words, that it's not real, that it's your own imagination. And I'm not saying to forget it. You should just take it and go, that's interesting. I'm going to put this over here. If it's a real dream because you really did get a visitation from somebody that died, then that's going to have an impact on your life. And there will be things and coincidences that cannot be explained away. If they tell you something or they give you some advice or something like that, like they say, in 3 weeks, there's going to be a volcanic eruption. And in 3 weeks, there's a volcanic eruption. Well, that sounds like you had a real experience. So you should remember it and do reality checks on it. And if there are things that happen in objective reality that you couldn't have known, then you can say, I had a visitation from my dead relative. But other than that, I think it's really helpful to look at it in terms of, what you're working through, that they are symbols in your unconscious and these are things that you're trying to work out. That's my opinion. So I do believe in spiritual dreams and shamanic visions and all that, but I'm very ruthless whenever I have them. I always try to make sure that I try and debunk them. And if I can't debunk them, then I take them seriously. Mr. West, I'm not sure if maybe this is before I explained to him how to do that. So you did the opposite. Are you doing that to piss me off? You wrote the word question, normal, and then you wrote your question screaming at me in all caps. And I want the opposite. I want the word question in all caps and the rest of it small. Anyway, maybe I'm not explaining it and you're doing your best to follow my instructions. Oh, you already asked me that. I already answered that question. Lewis, question, is the wind a spirit? Welcome to my channel. Here's my answer to that question. If I say yes or I say no, how will that information help you live a better life? I want you to dig deeper. Don't be, this is not a superficial channel. This isn't something when you're bored, that's a spiritual channel. Hey, is the wind a spirit? Are birds dinosaurs? How does that information help you live your life better? If you can convince me that answering that will make your life better, I'll give you my opinion on whether the wind is a spirit or not. Atham Animist, honest feeling. I do feel fear of death, but since I aim to face my fears, I wondered if immortality could be possible. But you're at odds with yourself because fear of death means that you're not trying to overcome it. I mean, facing your fear of death means I don't care if I die or not. So I'm not so sure that you're being honest with yourself. You're at odds with yourself. What you just said doesn't jive. It's okay. You say that you do have a fear of death. I have a fear of death too. I understand. There's a reason. I mean, that movie I just told you about with the guy, I couldn't watch most of it. I mean, it was. I mean, I was feeling like pain in my lower back as my whole body and my sphincter just tightened up. It was just because I can't watch that. It's so frightening. So there's nothing wrong with being afraid of death, but come on, let's stop bullshitting each other. Becoming physically immortal is not going to help you overcome your fear of death. Right? Let's see. Flux Pavilion, question. What are your thoughts on using the lucid dream state to contact the dead? What are my thoughts? I mean, what do you mean? Ask me a specific question. What are my thoughts on that? I don't want to answer the question because I don't know why you're asking it. Are you telling me that you want to contact the dead, who do you want to contact and why? If you make yourself vulnerable to me when you frame your question, I will be more inclined to help you. That's like in the third person. You're so removed from it. And I don't know that's why it's another one of those questions of how will that benefit you? If you can prove to me that answering that question will make your life better, I'll answer it. Until then, you got to be more brave in your question and reveal some of yourself in it so that I know how I can help you with my answer. Otherwise, it's just some intellectual knowledge I'm throwing out, and I don't know how that helps you. My job is to help you. Atham Animist, honest feeling. I appreciate your response to my question. It clears some things up for me. Good. I'm glad. David Hernandez, question. Do our beliefs literally create our experiential reality in this physical state and beyond? That is a really good question. So our beliefs are intellectual. This is one of the most destructive things about born-again Christianity. Because born-again Christianity says it doesn't matter what you've done. There's no such thing as karma. You're going to go to hell no matter whether you're Gandhi or whether you're Hitler. So it doesn't matter what you do. That has no effect on your life. But what you believe, if you make the intellectual belief that Jesus died on the cross, was buried 3 days and rose from the dead, died for your sins and is now sitting on the right hand of the Father. If you believe that, all of your sins will be forgiven and you'll be saved. And so that means you can still be just a worthless piece of shit, and that's okay because God forgave you. Whereas the person who really is conscious and aware and evolved and helps others, well, he's just going to burn in hell. Why? Because he doesn't have the right intellectual belief. Duh. He's not part of the club. So your question of do our beliefs literally create our experiential reality? I don't know that I said that our beliefs create it. I may have said that. I may have given that impression, but that's not really what I mean. Your desires create your reality. So if you have a strong desire to see Jesus, you'll see him. If you believe intellectually in Jesus, without naming names, there are people who I know who have passed, I knew them when they were young. And they had they had the same kind of beliefs that a lot of us have. And I could tell that was their honest feeling and belief. Later on, as many people do when they got into their 30s, people regress. So when you get to according to Vedic astrology, you become an adult in your mid-30s. Until then, you don't know who you are. But when you hit 30 to 35, you start to really understand who you really are. And that's when people's lives really start to change. Either they start to know where they're going and they take action towards that, or they regress. Because they can't tolerate really knowing who they are because they feel guilty or shameful or afraid. When they start to realize who they are is different from the way they were brought up, can become really frightening, and people don't want to feel like they're unconsciously killing their parents. So they regress. So a lot of people, when they're teenagers and young adults, they're these rebels. In fact, I'm thinking of somebody right now that was this total hippie rebel, and just recently she became a born-again Christian. And she's right around that age. Because what ends up happening is that when you face your true self, you have to either acknowledge it and take fearless action and change and transform and become who you truly are, or you regress and you try and please your parents. And so I know a lot of people who became conservative, born-again Christian, they became, Jews or Muslims, or, they became full-on, Trumpian Republicans, when before that they were progressive liberals. People end up becoming their parents. What does that have to do with your question? So that's intellectual. So I think there's a lot of people out there who have beliefs that when they die, they're going to go, oh yeah, that wasn't really how I felt about the universe. And there's a lot of near-death experiences where people, show up and say things like, Jesus doesn't care what your religion is. How do I know that? Well, I died and I talked to him, and he said, I don't care about your religion. Which goes completely against the Bible. In the Bible, Jesus cares a lot about your religion. He cares a lot about what you believe. In fact, if you don't believe it right, he'll say, get away from me, I never knew you. So your beliefs, I don't think, create your reality. Your desires create your reality. And if you are unconscious about your desires, then you'll be in a lot of difficulty and trouble, because your unconscious will try to create stuff that you consciously don't think you want. And it can make you miserable. So that's why I think it's important to be aware of what your feelings are, and more specifically, what your soul desires are, which are a lot different than what you think. So beliefs aren't nearly as important as what you feel and what you desire. Okay, there's spam. Let's get rid of that. Patrick Neal question. So I came on yesterday and asked about a similar topic. Did I give you an answer then? And do you think asking me a second time is going to help? I was still wondering, when people die, I know you believe in reincarnation. So do people reincarnate as the opposite gender or animals? How is that question going to help you? There's a reason why you're asking that question if you've asked it twice, and I didn't answer it the way you wanted. So you haven't told me why. And if I say yes or no to that question, how does it help you live a better life? Are you afraid that you're going to reincarnate as an animal? Do you want to reincarnate as an animal? Why are you asking that question? If you can convince me that it'll help you, I'll do my best to answer it. Thunder Staves Rangel question. Could you share a little bit more about how your relationship to your parents changed when they died? My dad died when I was 35, and it was very emotionally impactful, and I cried and I wept a lot, which is strange because my dad and I weren't that close, and I knew he was going to die for a while, so I'm not sure why I cried so much when he died. Could have been my age, could have been all kinds of things, I don't know, because I haven't had that experience with other family members who've died. My mother died. I didn't have a big emotional experience. My sister just died, and it was sad, and I've had some sadness for a couple of days, but nothing like what I went through when my dad died. So my life got better, because here's the thing. When your parents are alive, there is a very real energetic connection, if they're your parents especially. There's like an aura. Just being alive on this planet exerts a pressure on you. Now, that doesn't take away the fact that you still need to unconsciously separate and individuate, and you can still achieve as much independence as you want. But when my dad died, a big cloud lifted, and my life got better. Now, my mom was still alive, so she was exerting a lot of influence on me, or I was still, enmeshed with her. But my mom passed away not too long ago, probably about 4 years ago. And when my mom died, my business got much better, and another weight was lifted off of me. The thing about people, you're a Vedic astrologer, so you know what I'm talking about. The arudha, which is your reflection. We all come here and we think we know who we are, and we know how we feel, but people don't see us the way we feel ourselves to be. They see a reflection, and that reflection has a costume on it. And so you can't change that. When you walk in the room, people see you wearing a costume. They don't see you. They see your reflection that's based on past life and karma and all kinds of other things. And your dharma as well. So when people die, their arudha dies with them. For instance, there's been a lot of Vincent van Gogh. I mean, he was just completely unknown in his lifetime. Now that he's dead, he's the guy. But that's because his arudha, when he was alive, was not reflecting his true talent. But when you die, your arudha dies with you, and people see you for who you really were after you're dead. So that means that the nonsensical garbage that is going on with us changes when our parents die. We can still get really screwed up in whatever's going on an unconscious level, but I had done a hell of a lot of work to free myself from that. And when my parents died, it was like, that last little thing was taken away, and I was able to be much more free and much happier and much more successful. And, I was able to be my more authentic self in a deeper way. So you're asking what happened with me. That's what happened with me. I'm not saying that's how it's going to happen with anybody else. But you asked me, so I'm telling you. Atham Animist was asking, okay, so Atham Animist, I'm trying to share a lesson with you because I see it in your question, and I see that you don't see it. So every time that you want to interact with me and you want to really get me to understand you, it's not that I don't understand you, it's that you're not hearing. You're wanting to talk me out of the things that I'm seeing in your unconscious. And it will benefit you to listen and meditate on it instead of trying to convince me why you know what I mean? But again, everything you say that tries to explain or double down where you were, it still ends up telling me the same thing. In fact, your need to prove to me something different tells me the same thing. Your resistance and your defensiveness about it. You say, you already answered my question, but I was actually trying to ask if fearless action could lead to immortality, not the other way around. Again, why are you focused on immortality? That's not, fearless and immortality don't go together. Because what do they say? What do the brave people say? Today's a good day to die. They don't say today's a good day to live forever. They say today's a good day to die. My ancestors said those who die in battle go to Valhalla, not those who want to preserve their life. So what you're saying doesn't jive again. I'm still hearing, try and sanitize it all you want. I still hear it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it will benefit you to at least meditate on it. What have you got to lose? If I'm wrong, who cares? If I'm right, there's something there that might be helpful for you. Tiffany Twisted question. So when somebody hits their mid-30s, they either become more of their true self or more of their parents? Well, that's one possibility. I think what happens is, the short answer to your question is yes. But I think what happens is that they become more consciously aware of who they truly are. If you've grown up in a family where you were ashamed, where you had dysfunction, where you weren't again, I talk about that guy who, my new hero, who at 25 scaled, 20,000 foot, straight up and down. I'm not kidding. He would spend like 3 days without. He would climb all night in the dark, and then the sun would come up, and he'd spend the rest of the day climbing up to the top. I mean, it's just unbelievable. What in freezing cold winter weather? I mean, how could he do that? Forget about the fact that he's climbing on ice part of the way with ice things, and then he's climbing on slippery frozen rock, and his fingers are bleeding. How the hell could you do that for 48 hours straight? How could somebody do that? But as it turns out, his mom, saw that in him, and when he was really young, she said, "Go do it. Go experience." She didn't stop him from living a really dangerous lifestyle. Besides the fact that he was living, in ice caves with no money and no cell phone and, in a sleeping bag and stuff like that. And you know what I mean? His parents gave him the strength. They reflected back on him who he truly was. Now, he didn't reach adulthood, but it's obvious that he was living, to me anyway, he was living his soul desire. But for those of us, and I'm willing to bet that the majority of people watching this channel, you did not grow up in that scenario, because usually people don't end up on my channel if they have. People are looking for esoteric, powerful, spiritual practices because they're in pain, they've been, disempowered, and they want their power back. So I'm willing to bet that the majority of you, your parents did not reflect back to you unconditional love. They dumped on you what they thought you should be. They shamed you. It's clear from some people here that they're so trapped in their head that they don't even know how to have an honest feeling, and that's not their fault. Your parents shamed you out of your feelings when you were a kid. You were told that, if you cry, you're a bad boy. If you get angry, how dare you get angry at me? So you learn to stuff your feelings down. A lot of parents are really. My dad was this way. My dad was a world-renowned physicist. He was responsible for a lot of the inventions that led to the United States, going to the moon. He was, at one time, it may still be true, he had designed more satellites than any other man in the world. His satellites are still in the Smithsonian Institute. It doesn't have his name on it, but they're his satellites. And he was intimidated by his son, getting some kind of recognition, because when I did something in school and got recognition, it made him uncomfortable. And then he'd get drunk, and he would call me in, and he would ask me how school was going, and he made me feel real good. And then after I was done making myself, try and look good in front of him and telling him the truth, he'd then tell me how he was so much better than I was when he was my age. But that's okay. And he would just destroy me. He just destroyed my self-esteem. My mother made me feel that, I had no value unless I was just constantly attached to her. And so I couldn't be successful. I had to be mediocre if I wanted my parents' love. So it took a lot of effort for me to individuate past all that. So if you lived in a house where people did that, by the time you hit 35, you're going to bump into some real difficulty, because the unconscious and energetic patterns are going to be to pull you back into a disempowered state. And so you're going to have to work against that. And unless you're one of these really lucky people who have parents who reflect on, unconditionally on you and let you go fly and be free, and then you're able to achieve all of your dreams with very little resistance. But for the rest of us, it can be really tough. So to answer your question, for many people, yes, either you take fearless action and you go against the current and you you live your true soul desire in order to really be your true self, or the guilt and the shame that will come upon you, and the fear and the anxiety that could come upon you, will make you want to become a born again Christian and be just like mom and dad. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen do that. And I look back on their lives and I think, what a tragedy, what a loss. But they're my teachers, they're teaching me what not to do. So the short answer to your question is yes, but it all depends on, your karmic imprint as well as your family imprint. Bryce Gertson question: I'm becoming more aware of patterns in myself that are passed down from my parents. Question continued. While it is not necessarily negative, I want to ask if engaging in ritual can help me know myself on a level that goes beyond family and outside influences. I don't understand while it's not necessarily negative. You mean your parents' stuff that you, okay. Okay, so that may not be necessarily negative. I can understand that. So I want to know if engaging in ritual can help me know myself on a level that goes beyond family. Yes. When you get a mantra and a ritual from me, because a mantra ritual is designed to help you achieve your deepest awareness and to work through all of the unconscious programming. So that is actually, in my experience, one of the best ways. In fact, that's what ritual is for. Our ancestors did ritual, maybe not realizing it, for that very reason, to overcome their unconscious programming and get more in touch with their true self. So short answer, yeah. And it doesn't matter. This works for everybody, whether they've had good or bad parents. You had good parents, and you do ritual, it'll help you overcome whatever unconscious blocks are within you that have nothing to do with them. Past life stuff, present life stuff. We still make decisions based on our life experience, traumas and disappointments and things like that, which maybe our parents didn't do, but other things happen, relationships or school or, social or government or things like that. We can still get damaged and traumatized by things that aren't our parents, but they can still have a lot of negative pull on us. Triple R123, honest feelings. This channel has helped me with self-confidence. I'm happy to hear that. And I'm glad that you followed my directions on how to interact on the channel. I appreciate that. And I'd like for you to continue to do that. You have the ability. So I'd like for you to, if you want to interact with me well, I would like for you to keep doing that. All right. Madman X, this is a question and answer. If you have a question, write the word question in all caps, the word question in all caps, not the rest of it, and I'll answer it. Nothing personal, but this isn't the type of chat where people just drop their feelings. And I know that happens on most channels, but on my channel, I don't like that because it ends up getting in the way of me being able to see other people's questions. So welcome to the channel. I invite you to take a look at the videos that we have on here, and then if you come back, if you have a question aligned with what I'm teaching or one of my other videos, I'll be happy to answer it. And for everybody, since we've come to the end of the questions, I'll give you guys another couple of hours, but the Mao Shan, the price is going to go up because I've just uploaded the final fifth element. So if you've been waiting to do that and you want to save some money, now's the time. I recommend that everybody click all of the links. Courses.thunderwizard.com will show you all of the things and tools that I have available for you. Click subscribe if you like this channel and you want to see more of it. And of course, give thumbs up and all that good stuff. And then here's what I am most excited about, which is the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. It is the most powerful energy practice I know of, and I'm sharing it with you. I'm sharing with you a unified syncretic practice of all of the different energy paths that I've worked on, which includes chi, life force energy, kundalini, and one of the least known energy powers within the body, which is the most needed right now, which is the heart center lightning energy. You literally have a ball of lightning in your heart. Why do you think that they put, electric paddles on people's heart to start their heart? Your heart center has this lightning ball around it, but it stays dormant because its job is to protect the soul and protect the heart center, the emotions, the heart chakra, from the damage of three-dimensional human reality. But if you're able to release that lightning energy and release it through the nervous system and open up your heart, you can live on a level of power that most humans don't experience. And it's this power that is necessary to overcome the elite corporatocracy that is absolutely taking over the whole world and seeking to control your mind. If you want to fight against that, the lightning power is the most powerful energy source that I know of to do it. And if you want to learn how to do that, you can go up here. If you subscribe at the lowest level, you'll have access to the Mastery of Shamanism course. Hundreds of hours. There's no way you can get through all that stuff I think even in a year. That's the lowest level. If you subscribe at the middle level, that is the Manifestation Mastery course. If you subscribe there, you'll have access to the Mastery of Shamanism course and the Manifestation Mastery course, which will teach you how to train the universe, to treat the universe like a machine where you just flip a switch and it will give you what you need. But first you need to know how that works. You'll learn that on the Manifestation Mastery course. But what I really would encourage you to subscribe at is the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. That you'll have access to all three of the subscription levels, and you can have a practice, as I said, which is a unification of the three energy practices that are taught by shamans in this world. So do all that, as I said, subscribe, like, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, now I've done all of my my business. If there's any last minute questions. Aquarian light, that's not an honest feeling. It's more like a request. But you'd like to see me and Sethicus do another segment together. I'll do another segment with Sethicus. David Hernandez, honest feeling. Thank you for your answer to my question. Knowing that our desires, not beliefs, actually create our reality is a very liberating understanding. Good. I'm glad. That was my hope. My hope was that it would liberate you and empower you. You say, I'm now 37. In that stage you described where I either regress or fearlessly go in the direction of the self, and I discovered myself to be, it was just as you described. Well, I'm happy that it was helpful to you. That was the whole point. So if I can help just one person, it's worth it. All right. That's it for me, guys. It's getting late for me, so I gotta get ready for bed. That's all. So if you have any other questions, you can go ahead and drop them into any of the comments section of any of the YouTube channels. Don't email me directly. And if I like your question and or if it pisses me off, I will make a video about it. All right. Wish me well, guys, as I'm going through my own challenges and changes in my life right now. And I think a lot of changes come into the world. So now's the time. Seriously, now's the time. If you've been thinking about getting up off your rear end and doing some kind of practice, if you've been looking for a practice, I got one. And before I go, one last thing. If you don't know how to search within somebody's YouTube channel, please learn how to do it. On a laptop or a desktop, you go to their channel. For me, you would go into YouTube, and at the top you would type in Thunder Wizard. My channel page will come up. You click on my channel page, and you go to the second menu and you go at the far right, you'll see a magnifying glass. You click on that, type in any search term you want, and you'll see all of my videos. I've got thousands of hours of video on there, and it's a library for you to use. I recommend that you do that. And there's all kinds of practices on there. If you don't want to subscribe, of course, that pays my bills, but if you don't want to, for whatever reason, there's no shortage of free stuff. Please use it. Please do the Thor's Belt, the Heaven Earth Qigong, the Awakening the Immortals, the Hool Breath. Do those things, because if you do, you will have an impact on the quantum field and help all of humanity rise to the next level. I just got chills thinking about it. Please. Don't ever say I didn't do nothing for you. I've given you no shortage of free stuff. Do something, please. That's my request. Do some of the exercises that I give you. All right, that's it for me, guys. I wish you all the best. I will see you all next time around.